The Nintendo GameCube may have had a pretty extensive library in North America, but there were still many games that were exclusive in Japan that never released in the States. In this episode, I wanted to cover a few games that never made their way here. There are actually a good amount of games that were exclusive to the GameCube in Japan, but I'm only choosing a select few I got to check out recently. Before we begin, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and notification bell down below. This way you don't miss out on any future GameCube content. Also, I just want to take a quick moment and thank all you amazing fans that have subscribed so far and have supported me since day one. Within 6 weeks, I was able to hit over 100 subscribers and give the channel a custom URL, all thanks to you guys for supporting me. There's also a few channels I want to give a shout out to, such as RetroWolf88, How to Game Differently, ViddyOGamesForFun, SegaBlocks, New York Gamer hosted by R17, Hallowed Be Thy Game, and Lame Dad. If you haven't subscribed to them yet, I will provide links down below in the description. Be sure to subscribe to their channels. They are great content creators. Please support them just as much as they supported me. Alright, let's get started. First up is Nintendo Puzzle Collection, which was developed by Intelligent Systems and Nintendo Software Technology. This collection contains 3 puzzle games, Dr. Mario 64, Panel de Pon, and Yoshis Cookie. While Dr. Mario 64 is a straight port of the N64 release, since ironically the N64 game never released in Japan, Panel de Pon and Yoshi's Cookie were made for the ground up on the GameCube. Dr. Mario 64, as stated, is exactly the same as its N64 counterpart. All the same content like quick play, story mode, and multiplayer are here, except now in Japanese. Oh, I should probably mention that there's no English support on this compilation, but I was able to navigate through the menus without much issue. Next up is Panel de Pon, which is essentially what Pokemon Puzzle League was like. Your cursor highlights 2 puzzle pieces horizontally at all times, and you can move and swap to try to match 3 or more colors and shapes to eliminate off the board. The puzzle pieces continue adding on from the ground up and require you to move a bit fast to last as long as possible. It's a neat concept, and I can see the addictive nature behind this. Then there's Yoshi's Cookie, which basically builds upon the NES original. You try to swap out and move different cookie types to match and clear up the board. There's the typical quick play, and it also has a story mode implemented that has you facing off against the computer. A really cool feature though is that you can actually connect your Game Boy Advance with the GameCube Game Boy Advance connector cable, and you can download NES versions of each of those games mentioned. It's a neat bonus for sure, and I really like that they bundled the cable with this game. I really like this compilation, and it's a shame that it never got an English translation. Actually, this was originally slated for release in North America and Europe, but without much info, it was canceled last minute. Although, this would actually be a good release to push out on the Switch, having that on-the-go nature of the console. Next up, Robocop. Published and developed by Titus. Yeah, the same Titus that made Superman 64. Alright, let's see how this is.
Crime will not be tolerated. You have been warned.
So this Robocop game is actually a first-person objective-based shooter, but so far from early impressions, it's not really positive. Gameplay is a bit run-of-the-mill and doesn't really do much to grab your attention. You must complete objectives which appear to be highlighted through Robocop's visor, and you can also arrest criminals that are incapacitated, but I couldn't really tell if that actually benefited much from a gameplay perspective. Also, enemy AI is not that competent. I mean, look at this guy who doesn't even notice his buddy being taken out right next to him. Also, Neo Detroit has a serious rat problem, and they said New York City rats were massive. The game is mostly in Japanese text, but all the voice acting is in English. Visually, the game tries to capture the gritty feel of Neo Tokyo, but enemy animations are pretty stiff, and the frame rate is inconsistent. Music from early impressions is also a little generic, and I felt like it missed the opportunity to include the iconic Robocop theme somewhere in the game. However, even despite all these issues, I am still somewhat intrigued to continue playing it, mostly because it's a Robocop game and we rarely ever see games based on him. The last time Robocop had a great game was Robocop vs. Terminator on the Sega Genesis, and the last great cameo he had was in Mortal Kombat 11.
Time to meet your maker.
Next up is Kuru and Squash, a sequel to a GBA game that I loved called Kuru Kuru. Kuru was a game I got when I was actually in Italy back in 2001 for the Game Boy Advance, and I was so hooked into the game that I actually completed it entirely on both difficulties. When I heard there was a new installment being made for the GameCube back in the day, I was stoked to get this. However, it ended up never getting localized and remained exclusive in Japan. Anyway, the premise of the game is simple. You fly a constantly rotating helicopter through tight courses trying to get to the goal without losing your health. The game does a good job of easing you in, but quickly ramps up in difficulty. You will need to memorize levels to complete them, and furthermore to speedrun them. What I liked about this GameCube installment was that you actually get different helicopters with abilities, like one where you can punch obstacles and enemies out of the way. This was never in the original game, so this was a nice change to the gameplay. There's even Game Boy Advance connectivity support, but with its sequel on the Game Boy Advance called Kuru and Paradise. Unfortunately, I didn't have a copy of this at the time to test this, but maybe in a future episode I might be able to showcase it. There is also the Hudson selection of games that released exclusively in Japan. There were 4 volumes released, each being a remake of a Hudson Soft game. Cubic Gold Runner is a 3D take on the original, where you must collect all the gold in an area to unlock the exit. Enemies will try to stop you, but you have a trusty gun that allows you to destroy blocks beneath you so that you can trick them into falling in. The game has a good chunk of levels to tackle for sure. Additionally, there is an edit mode where you can actually create your own levels for either yourself to play later on, or to have your friends and family tackle. The visuals and audio are okay, but out of the 4 volumes, this is definitely the weakest in my personal opinion, and probably not something I'd spend too much time with. Next up is Star Soldier. This vertical shoot 'em up has you blasting at everything in your path, dodging enemies and bullets, and trying to keep your ship fully powered up. You basically go stage to stage doing this, but the stages can get a bit repetitive due to each area looking pretty similar. There are multiple modes in the game though, which is very welcome. There's a 2-minute and 5-minute score attack, as well as your traditional normal mode. The visuals are pretty solid for a retro remake of its time, and it does run at 60 frames a second. Also, the soundtrack is really catchy to help further engross you into the action. I never played the original game before, but I was really enjoying my time playing this one. I'm really looking forward to coming back to this soon. Next is Bonk Adventure. Yeah, it's a different name in Japanese, but I'm not going to sit here and butcher the pronunciation. Now, Bonk's Adventure I played and beat thanks to the Wii Virtual Console. It was actually one of the first Virtual Console games I got with my launch day Wii console. When I booted up this remake, I wasn't too keen on the new visual style. Bonk looks, well, he looks kind of crazy, and not in a good way. The original pixel design made him appear more likable and expressive. In this one, he just looks like he's in serial killer mode at all times, and it only gets worse with each power-up. Oh, and his eyes when swimming? Good lord, I mean, look at him! Thankfully, the game is still just as entertaining as the original was. I did notice though that the physics were a bit different and it took some adjusting, but other than that, the core gameplay is still the same. The soundtrack has also been arranged, but I do prefer the original version still. It is cool to see a remake for Bonk, and I wish that it got a North American release, honestly. I wish we would actually see a new game for this character. Next up in the collection is Adventure Island. I've tried out the originals and couldn't really get into them, to be very honest. However, this one had me thoroughly engaged. Playing as Master Higgins, you must get from point A to point B with checkpoints along the way. He starts off with nothing and can only walk and run at first, but then he can pick up weapons like axes to throw at enemies in your way, as well as a skateboard to slightly speed up traversal, which also provides an extra hit point for you since he does die in a single hit. I actually like the visual aesthetics the most in this game of the 4 volumes, and the soundtrack was really catchy too. This is another one that I'm planning on continuing to finish, as I was really getting into this. Namco released a Japanese exclusive for the GameCube called Mr. Driller Drill Land. Developed by Project Driller, this title has you playing as Mr. Driller in a variety of locales aiming to get to the bottommost area in each location. Controls are simple. You simply press the A button to drill away blocks and aim in a 4-way direction. Blocks are color-coded, and the more the same color blocks are attached, the more area you can clear with each drilled action. As you dig your way down, you must watch out for blocks that fall, which are signified by them shaking. The visual style is vibrant and simple, but it does the job, and the audio matches the game quite well. I never played a Mr. Driller game before, but this is a fun time to be had. Now, this is actually the only game in this episode that did end up getting an HD re-release worldwide for the PC and Nintendo Switch. So if you like what you see, you can head over to your digital marketplace and nab it. There's even a demo for it on the Switch eShop if you're interested. Last up is Dream Mix TV World Champions, the fighting game that has Optimus Prime, Simon Belmont, and Bomberman all duking it out. Yeah, it's an interesting combination. So, this fighting game is essentially like a Super Smash Bros. Clone, but it does change up the formula a bit to make it feel like its own game. This 4-player brawler has you choosing a character from 3 company brands, Takara, Konami, and Hudson. Once you choose your character, you duke it out and knock out heart coins out of opponents. The premise is to knock out enough heart coins out of your opponent to have their heart fly out of their body. When this happens, the opponent shrinks in size and can try to get their heart back to stay in the game longer. But as the aggressor, you need to grab the heart to knock them out for good. It's an interesting premise that can keep multiplayer sessions pretty intense. The fighting mechanics are solid, but not quite as fluid as Super Smash if I was to compare the 2 games. But what I played is actually really enjoyable to me so far. Playing as Optimus Prime, Simon Belmont, and Bomberman is really cool, and seeing unlockable characters like Solid Snake and Megatron is sweet. I can see why the game was exclusive to Japan, but if you are a fighting game fan or a fan of these characters, I'd say this is definitely worth importing and playing if you can. And there you have it, folks. These are some games that are exclusive for the GameCube in Japan. Like the GameCube market in North America, some of these games have really gone up in value, especially the Hudson Selection games. Now, this is again not every GameCube Japanese exclusive, but just a select handful. Maybe I'll visit more in a future episode. I actually enjoyed my time with these games for the most part, and I'm definitely looking forward to investing more time with them in the near future. What do you guys think? Any games that you're interested in here? Sound off in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.